Hello, great to see you. First of all, I have to check my meeting. I just have to put it in there. 1 second. Okay, meeting ID. Okay, so now you should start seeing my presentation, right? Let me check. Yeah, it looks right. Okay, great. So welcome you all here today in the morning. It's I feel quite honored to be on stage to present or giving the intro into content production. And I'm sure, as a lot of you know, there are a lot of things happening and changing all the time in this direction. day in VR. And I mean, oops, so now we have all these portable VR screens, I mean, which not just allow us to watch interactive 2D content, but we are also able to watch full 6 degree of freedom. And this is very new to us because it provides us a possibility of being for the first time, to be really inside of a story and to experience the story, being part of it. And creating a movie, for example, out of a book is a process with a lot of translation. I mean, we have a very defined way of which frames per second we choose, which colors, which lights, camera angles, and which framing, and they're all related to what kind of emotions we want to trigger in the audience. And also it's like a bi-directional thing because the audience has learned how to read those rules. And this is something which needs to accomplish over a longer period of time. In VR, I mean, the viewer can walk around and decide on his own which parts he wants to focus on. And so the camera is basically the viewer, and rules from film or games can't be really applied directly to VR. So the whole storytelling apart has to be rewritten from new. Just as one example, imagine if you have a low-angle camera in a cinema. I mean, this will make the actor more dominant for the audience. But if you have a low-angle camera like in VR, where you basically shrink the viewer, the world for him would feel like as if he's a child, or even if you make it more extreme, as if he would be a bug. So the same adjustment triggers two completely different emotional states in the viewer. And this is quite impressive. So let us quickly dive into the world of content creation. So for this, I think it's important to understand that technology always drives the way how we consume content. I mean, if you look at the first TVs, it took quite a while until they actually got to a stage where more people adopted to it. So same as TVs changed the content perception, the creation of new head-mount displays changed our perception as well, and that's why important in the later talks today in this sessions, we have also hardware producers who explain more about their technology there, because it's important to not just look at the content and the creation of content, but also what kind of technology implications this has. How can you distribute the content, and how will your audience perceive it? At the moment, regarding the last research I read, was that in the US at least about 8% of the households now owning a VR headset. And just to bring this into perspective, this means we are like in the 50s of TV consumption, because in the 50s, the household had about like 8% of TVs in the US. And it took them about 15 years to get from those 8% to 90% of households with a TV. So it wasn't such a long time period, but nowadays it's way faster because things are scaling up much more quicker than it was in those early days. But what I see is that we still have a bit of time where this technology will evolve, and we are far away from, I mean, things for TV like having Dolby Surround and very colorful images and all those things. Those will happen onto those devices as well. So it's it's a beginning. And if you look at the content creation side, I like to compare it a bit with when we look how original content was created in the early days. I mean, in the beginning, we just had the way to do manual work, and this was very stylized by painting those art pieces. And then technology provided us a possibility to take a real picture of something, and this picture is a static representation of the reality. And after this, we managed, due to technology, to make it movable until we evolved the cinematic experience we're all familiar with now. And when you look at 3D content in comparison, right now we are at the same steps. So we have the manual work of stylized characters or stylized environments, which will be created right now. And this is something which still most of the content creators use or got used to. Then now we got more and more, I would say, AAA productions who going over and using scanning systems. I mean, those scanning systems are also already on the market, I think like 20 years. And I mean, maybe you're already familiar with them because you could do scans with you in shopping malls today and get a 3D print of yourself. Those are like systems, and if you combine those and do like hundreds of scans with several motions, you can start blending between them. But the big problem or the big challenge with those systems is actually that it's very complex to create then those animation-based back onto this scanned characters. So it's a very intensive pipeline, and if you really look into it, I mean, if you're aiming for AAA game content to make those persons more realistic, it's something which gets very, very expensive very fast, and it's not really affordable for any, I would say, creative content producers. So nowadays, regarding the last years, we managed to have a new technology on the market called volumetric capture or VOLUCAP, where you're basically not just doing a static scan of a person itself, but you are able to really scan the person with whole movement and motion. And this provides much more fidelity look of those characters. And you can imagine scanning environments and bringing them together. It's a pretty huge benefit. But I have to quickly, I think, jump through to not lose too much time because it's just like 15 minutes I have. So the process of this is quite easy. You can nowadays use it like a normal camera, and then you have a 3D object. Just a quick glimpse into it. I think it will, video presentation due to crank will be a bit laggy, but I think you get a glimpse of the studio, how this looks. And here you also see that you need a lot of hardware actually to achieve something which is then very useful and very, very convenient to produce content. But you often need a lot of technology in the end. And then this is actually one of the captures of myself. On our website, you will see more of those examples, but you see those captures don't look like avatar anymore. You see it's a real person, and if Ribella would allow it or would be possible, maybe in the next social VR things, I could present myself like this on the stage here. And just to give you a brief glimpse of possibilities, because once people have been scanned in this manner, you can't just use them for VR content, but you can also use them for mixed reality content, for augmented reality content. And this is the big thing. If you create your content volumetrically, that you have everything scanned in 3D, you are basically completely free for upcoming devices on the market. So here you see just one example where the band was then live integrated into environment, and then people could do show performance with them. Here's another quick example of another famous band from Germany we have captured. And here, this wasn't actually a part of the real project, but just a little piece of it from a loop from those 4 persons, and we try to figure out or think about what can we do with this little loop. It was an additional capture, and so we created like a massive scene. Let me pause this video here so you can get at least a glimpse of it. So this is just the whole band as in same as an audience dancing to the same song, and if you would hear the music, and so it's quite funny actually. And as you can imagine, if you have a VR headset on you and you could walk around those environments, the storytelling is affected quite drastically by how to tell stories in this direction, and also what you do with those persons. And I mean, in the beginning, a lot of people ask us about, okay, can you do interactive things like having the person, for example, look in your face, that you get a more personal direction. So when the person with the headset walks around you, and this is possible, but now since it is possible, we see that you have to direct those things as well. Because if you imagine you have a stage like this with hundreds of people and you walk there and everyone is looking at you, it might not trigger the attention or the emotions you want to have in the audience when they want to experience something. Here's another just quick example I want to share with you in terms of content production, because this was quite yeah, it surprised me, because we have a quite big news channel in Germany called TARGO. It's the biggest one from the state, and they're not very, I would say, famous for providing emotional content. It's like very objective kind of news story, and we put it on the iPad, and so people could experience this on the IFA last year, and we had like 700 people watching it, and I was very impressed by how people really reacted to it. Like 80% of the people were totally blown away, and they really watched the whole 6 minutes from start to end. So they got totally impressed by it because they could relate to the show, and it was running from the weather channel to the normal things, and you could really walk around the weather maps and everything. And when it was raining around you, and people got really amazed by it. And of course, the content production itself is not just related to VR, so you can also use those things for creating cinema content. I mean, if you have full 3D virtual environments, you can use them for commercials, you can use them for feature films. So it's a very flexible way, and I think this is something what will change content production in the future quite drastically. And as I mentioned before, I mean, you also can imagine, I mean, this is just a quick example of a curd we have scanned in Berlin. I don't know if you can see it here, but let me pause this thing, but or let me just explain it. You can basically even read the little stickers on the poll, so you have much more feedback loops with the client to really figure out what people are possible. I mean, people could walk behind the poll and read what's written on there, and you have really to do feedback loops with the client that there's nothing actually in the scene which could be disturbing for any viewers or something like this, because in Berlin especially we have a lot of crazy graffiti and text there. But it's quite impressive because you can keep the whole authenticity of the whole environment, and with new devices I think this will be a big step into the future, how we receive and how we will produce content. I think I'm quite much done with my presentation right now, so let me switch back to Vibella. Thank you very much for your attention. I don't know if you have time for a few questions. It would be great if you could raise your hands.
We have like a time for one short question. If you have it, you will see the raise hand button, which is in the bottom side of the middle of your screen. If you press that, I will see that you have a question. I will call out your name and then you can ask it. Don't be shy.
Okay, there's a question.
Rick, so sorry for mispronouncing.
Yeah, please, what is the question?
Hi, I just have a question around the optimization. So if building this for social VR platforms, obviously the polygon count has to be really low. Is that handled within the software, or do you have to do additional optimization after the scans?
I mean, right now I would say those technology like volumetric capture is very new, and I mean, current devices would not be able to play back like hundreds or thousands of people in real time with this technology. But you can imagine if you have like a rock star on a trade show, and at least the visitors are participating as kind of avatars. This is something which is possible right now. But bringing this technology to, let's say, I would say everyone will take a bit of time, also for the capturing, because no one want to have those big stages at home to do a capture of themselves. But this technology is evolving very fast.
Thanks very much.
Okay, then thank you very much for your participation, and I will clear the stage for the next presentation. Thank you very much.
For those who have just arrived, please keep your mic off during the talks and avoid walking on the main stage, please. You can also use the public chat to talk with each other, to ask questions, or if you have any technical issues, please just direct message me, or you can also message it in the chat. Thank you. Enjoy the talks.
This should work better. All right, first question again. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. I guess I can hear.
Perfect, then. It's the first question in a virtual conference is, can you hear me? But it's a very nice experience to be standing here on stage. And I'm here. Tell your presenter this number. Okay, wait, give me a second. I'm going to fix this.
When you're sharing with Crankwell, you have to copy the first link and not the second link.
Yeah, I'm there. I just auto-accepted, so that should work.
If those in the audience, if you do not see the screen or you have an error, please just press on the refresh button, which is on the top right corner of the middle screen.
All right, this looks good. welcome everybody. Thanks for having me on stage here. Like I said, this is a very special thing to be standing on a virtual stage. As some of you might see, I am actually using virtual reality to present in virtual reality. And the reason for that is that our company is called Eden, and we are literally creating some amazing stuff with technology. We're, in a way, we're a hacker company. And as a little bit of an example for that, here's the tools I'm using. So unfortunately, Verbella doesn't have any presentation tools in VR, but I wanted to make sure to have at least a little bit of expressions here on stage, and also show you that VR is the future, even though it needs a little bit of hard work like this. There's a little bit of problems with VR in these environments. And this is Eden. We're a company from South Africa. There's 12 people, and I joined late last year, and my role there is the head of Europe for the company. And I'm also a co-founder of one of the largest communities on the internet for virtual reality. I'm a huge VR enthusiast. For anyone of you who's on reddit.com, you might know the Oculus subreddit. I'm one of the original founders of that. And some of you might know me from my former role at NVIDIA, where I was responsible for the European virtual reality business as their head of VR for EMEA. And what the company does is we're from South Africa, so our heart beats the African way, and we're from a city called Johannesburg that many of you obviously know. And what we've been doing there is immersive tech shows. So shows where we brought in traditional artists and we enriched their art. We created content that allowed those viewers to view the experience through the eyes of the artist. And through that, we, unfortunately, as content creators, we had to jump through a lot of hoops to make these things work. We realized that there's a ton of problems with virtual reality and with the current VR solutions. And the first one is that irks me really is the tech feels scary. You always have to bring people a little bit closer to it. You have to explain it. And also it ruins your look. So for those of you who are sitting on Verbella, your look is not impacted at all. But for me, I had a full day of the investor event at XRBase that was done in Engage in full VR, and my hair looked really messy. And this is obviously something that you don't really want as a first experience with your with a new technology, is that it ruins your look. You're really anxious about what you look like to the outside world. Explaining VR controls is really a nightmare. So if you've ever done anything like this, where you put somebody's finger onto a touchpad, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's just a lot of friction getting people into VR. There's a constant need for charging. Those devices, if they're mobile devices, they're literally almost always empty. And for some of you who've seen this part of this talk at VR Days last year, this is a little bit of a recap. And then I'll go forward to a little bit more of a current state and where we are. There's
Dominic,
also no
I
good
think
way.
we lost your voice.
Did you? My mic is on. Hello, hello. My mic is on. Okay, there's people, everybody can hear us. Okay, so Ludmilla, it seems to be something on your side, but thanks for letting me know. All right, I'll go back one slide. Like I said, there's no good way to store VR devices. So many of you have seen this at real world events where you come into a room and there's a table with just a bunch of Oculus Gos flying around. You don't really know what to do. You don't really know how to use the device. It's really not the nicest experience, especially from a brand perspective. If you have a really nice show and you put a lot of effort into your booth, you don't want to have these VR devices just lying around like this. Another one is that VR demos almost always need hosts. So in the real Laval Virtual, we would have seen a lot of hosts being there just to get people into VR and to explain all of these things that I just mentioned. There's the problem that managing multiple devices is also a big mess. So if you do content updates or if you do firmware updates across multiple devices, and this is really not something that a content creator wants to do. They just want a display device that works. And also there's no insight into the device usage and health. So you don't really know how many people have viewed your device, which part of the content did they like best. Those are all things that that you really don't really get from devices like the Oculus Go or other devices where it's literally just a black box. You don't really know how many people have viewed your content and especially what part of content they found most engaging. And all of these problems we've solved over and over again in different projects until we realize that it actually doesn't make sense to solve these problems over and over and over again. And everybody in the VR industry does that. And so we've created a device that is called Eden Snacker. And I wish I could show you the video here, but for reasons of connectivity, I can't. But I'll talk you through. This is Eden Snacker, and we've made this device with a patented grip. And that is really a game changer when it comes to the consumption of VR, because people don't have to strap into headsets. They don't need to learn any complicated controls. They literally just pick up the headset and hold it to their face, which is as easy as it gets. The system allows that way to really dive in and dive out of VR experiences quickly and get a quick glimpse into VR without all of the problems that I just mentioned. The headset itself docks onto a cradle, and the cradle is equipped with wireless charging. So you don't ever need to plug a cable into your devices to recharge them. They get automatically charged as soon as they rest on the cradle, which is very useful for events where you have a long where you need to run for like 8 hours. This would be impossible with other headsets where you have to have 2 sets of devices to make sure that the battery keeps up with the demand. Another thing that we've implemented is a touch screen control. So essentially, instead of trying to figure out what to do with the VR controls and which button to press, you have an interface that everybody knows how to use, and that way you pick some content on the display on the touch screen, and then as soon as you hold the headset to your face, it'll automatically play. We've also built a self-service kiosk version. Essentially, if there's a space where you don't want to guide somebody through an experience, you actually have a full kiosk that runs everything automatically. And there's a rating screen, there's a play button. It's all very much self-explanatory. There's no technical affinity from your viewer to be able to view this. And at the end, they can rate the experience, which also, again, feeds you back data on how people are using your device. And to make sure that these devices are always stay connected, you know, that you don't run into issues with your event Wi-Fi or other problems, these devices always have connectivity through 4G and in the future 5G. But you can also connect them to wired internet or Wi-Fi if you want more, if you want higher bandwidth there. And this allows you to get powerful insights on how those devices are being used literally all the time. This is really important for you to be able to go back to your customers and say, okay, we did this nice VR activity. Here's what we got from it. We had 10,000 views. We had 4,000 minutes of content. People in this location experienced more content than in this location, and they've been higher engaged. And that, again, will give you insight on how you can change your approach in that regard. So like I said, Eden Platform solves all these problems, and Eden Snacker is the first product that taps into the features of the platform. And this is how we envision making VR easier in places like, for example, VR cinemas, where you just have a bunch of snackers there. It's really easy. There's no need to explain anything, and it can be controlled through one central touch screen from an admin, for example. And this is how we ended our talk at VR Days 2020 with Coming 2020. And we actually debated a lot in our team on whether to put a quarter here or like, you know, a H1 or a H2. And I'm the marketing person in our company. I'm kind of happy that we didn't do that because, well, 2020 came. And many of you will have seen this picture. It's an image of China and the air pollution that they have. And since we are producing in China, this was obviously quite a shock for us because we at first had the issue that, well, the factory of the world has essentially shut down for a couple of weeks. And that is something that obviously made us think, and that many of you out there obviously also had to think about. How do you react? What do you do as a startup when there comes a sudden shift in in the whole world essentially? And what we did is, first of all, we regrouped. I mean, many of you also know this image. We literally took our work from an analog way to a digital way. We're meeting every day. We were able to continue our work seamlessly through the means of modern communication technology. And then we refined. We realized that there's a little bit of time that we can actually use to make a better product. So we had the chance to go back to some of our initial ideas from the drawing boards. And one of the things that I think turned out really cool is that we're planning to include a NFC reader into the device. So there's going to be an NFC tag in the headset itself, and also one in the cradle and in the kiosk. And the NFC tag connects the two devices. So there's no, even for an admin, you don't have to go through crazy screens and look for serial numbers. You literally just tap the device and it'll automatically sync that way. But the NFC tag will also be in the front of the kiosk. So whenever you want to have your customers engaged more, or you want to collect contact details from them, they can literally just tap their phone, and that way you have a way of interacting with them without them having to go through forms and menus and all of that stuff. Another thing we refined is, and this is just what I said, is we also put the NFC tag within the cradle. So the system also always knows when the headsets are on the stand, which is obviously helpful for a remote device management. And we also listen to feedback from our customers. So one of the things we built in is a tether, a method to tether the headset for anti-theft reasons, for example, or if you for any reason want to tether the device to have a constant power input. For example, in a VR cinema where there would be more viewing time than resting time on the cradle. And another thing we've refined, and this takes a little while to load. It doesn't load anymore. Let me see my screen. Yeah, we have a little bit of lag, and there we go. And other things that we've refined is we've just literally looked at all of the parts of the platform and looked at what is the essential stuff. What can we make better? How can we use this time to create an even better product? I'm sorry for the delays here, but I will talk you through anyway. So what we've done is we've really looked at all of these things. We've built our own prototypes so we could work with the ergonomics. We've really figured out and ironed out the last kinks on the platform. And now my meeting ended, even though I didn't end it. But I'm also at the end of my talk. This was very nice. I mean, it's an experience for all of us to be on stage. And the last thing that I wanted to say is, if you're in any way interested in Eden Snacker, then just go to edensnacker.com. That is where you can sign up for our partner program. You can also contact me through LinkedIn. My name is Dominic ESKOFIER. Find me on stage, and if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
So I see there is a question in the public chat. I think it was Christian who asked, what operating system does this run on? Are there any controllers for the user?
Is it allowed to actually have my colleague come up on stage? Because we have our CTO in the audience, and he's much better equipped to answer that question. I can also answer it if you want. That's
No problem.
Whatever you prefer. Hopefully he's there. Rick, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
You wanna answer that question?
Yeah, sure. So basically it's running Android. It's an Android device, and we're running Linux on the kiosk. In terms of controlling, to minimize the any need for interaction or teaching at the moment, The snackers, a lot of it is on gaze-based control, but we also have controls on the side of the headset if needed. And additionally, there are additional controllers that are supplied if people need specific uses for that. But out the box, generally, we try and minimize any sort of pain points for someone that isn't used to VR to get into the world. So as Dom mentioned, it's straight picking up the headset and diving straight into the content.
I see another person asking, how do you handle hygiene in between usage?
That's a very good question. I mean, we've thought a lot about what to do with the sanitation of the devices, and right now we're not at a point where we can talk about these things publicly. But please stay tuned. But we're thinking about a couple of different solutions. One of them is obviously UVC sterilization of the headsets. We're also thinking about a way of integrating sanitation into the devices itself or into the package. But these are things that we're currently working on with our manufacturers in China, and we're very happy to talk about that in just a few weeks.
Thank you. If anybody else has a question, you can just raise your hand by pressing the raise hand button, which is bottom middle of the screen. If you don't want to talk or you don't have a mic, you can also type the questions in the public chat.
While we're waiting for a question from the audience, actually I see a couple people with VR, and just as a means of doing some market research, can those VR people raise their real hands, so not the one in Verbella, but like their virtual hands? See, there's one guy over there, this guy over there. No, you're not you're having questions. Okay. Yeah, but the vast majority is on the desktop. That's interesting to see. Ludmilla, I think Hans-Holger and Guillaume had questions.
Yeah, I was going to say, then, oh, you put your hands down. No, I can't read your name. So I saw two people having their hands up. Did you have a question or did you press on the wrong button?
I think they might have pressed the wrong button.
Yeah, looks like it. Anybody has a question? Then please continue with what you were saying before.
I was just trying to find out what the ratio is of people that are in VR, watching this in VR, and people on the desktop, but it looks like there's about 90% or more on the desktop version, which I hope will change in the future by making VR a little bit easier for people. You know, if it wouldn't be as clunky, then we wouldn't have these problems, and I wouldn't have to tape my mouse to my touch controller. But yeah, we're working on that. But if we don't have any questions, I'll be around in Verbella all day. Find me somewhere there. I'll probably switch to the desktop version, but I'll see you there. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your talk. We're just looking for the next speaker. Nicolas, can you please stand on stage? Thank you. Oh, sure. Nicolas, est-ce que tout marche bien?
Bah, je suis en train d'essayer de changer changer l'adresse, mais ça ne veut pas.
Ah, c'est arrivé. Attendez.
Ça veut pas.
Attendez, j'essaie de m'enlever de là. Ça essayez maintenant.
Ça a marché avant.
Ophélie. Ophélie, t'es là?
Oui, je suis là.
Nicolas, d'un coup, n'arrive plus à changer l'écran.
Nicolas, envoie-moi dans le chat le lien et je vais le coller. Nicolas a disparu.
Là, je suis là.
Ah, il faut que tu montes sur la scène, Nicolas, pour pouvoir accéder
Bah, j'y suis.
à l'écran.
Et sur la scène.
Moi, je le vois dans le public. Il y a
Ah bon
un souci. Il y a clairement un souci.
Je me déconnecte, je me reconnecte, je fais.
À tout de suite, ouais.
Oui,
Ouais.
volontiers. Hi, sorry, we're having just a small technical issue, but we will be back very shortly. For those of you who don't see the screen or it shows an error, please press on the refresh button, which is on the top right corner of the middle screen, and it should be working afterwards. Thank you. Nicola, you're not talking.
Okay, you listen me now?
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, okay, sorry. I forgot to press the mic button. So, hello everyone. I'm Nicolas PERRET. I'm a senior principal software engineer at 3D RUDDER. 3D RUDDER is a startup from south of France, Aix-en-Provence. And I will talk to you today about the way of the virtual world. But before, we need to talk about what is mainstream VR. Mainstream VR will be the VR for everyone. It will be the VR of the future. And everyone will use VR in the future. But today, the road of the VR is broken. It's broken because the virtual reality has not been true for everyone. And everyone don't mandatorily know what they want, what they need, or even what is virtual reality. To understand that, we first need to define what is the real price of virtual reality. It's not necessarily the price of the computer. It's even if your computer is very powerful, expensive, it's not necessarily the price of the headset you use. It could be even the most high-end one. It's because of the way the VR have been designed today. Today, to do VR, you need space and a lot of this space. And do you have this space in your room? Is your room have been designed for this space? You need to do a full VR setup today, and generally you don't have this space. Generally you have the space for a computer, but you don't mandatorily have the space for the VR, for VR. So today, space is the most expensive part of VR, because in a lot of city, in fact, it's the price of the space. The price of the space of your house will be the most expensive parts of your house. But even if you have space, you could break everything. You could break the TV, you could break the furniture, because you are too much in the action when you do VR, because you don't see what you have around, because you have the headset on. VR could be dangerous sometimes, and danger is not for everyone. I talk about real danger. Danger, you could get injury because you can hit a wall, for instance. So it's not in VR, it's in real, it's in the real life. So today we see a lot of solution to work out in VR, but okay, so this means if we want that the VR become mainstream, this means that you will use VR often. So is today you do workout all the time? Generally, no. And why VR should be limited to workout and workout only? Let's see. For instance, your grandma do workout or in VR? Well, some grandma may do workout sometimes. Why not? It's good for them. But this means that they, as I said, VR need to be for everyone. And this includes your grandma, and it includes yourself. The path of the least resistance. It's a law. It's a law you can find in nature, for instance. When you have an electric shortcut or water flooding, everything goes the shorter way. The nature don't wait to do some disaster. They use the path of the least resistance. And in fact, it's the same for the human. Yes, the human, I mean, everyone, you including. Everyone is lazy by definition. Everyone needs a simple solution and not to be tired when they do VR. If you don't have a simple solution, you will not use VR. If it's complicated to use, you have too much cable, you will not use VR. If you are tired, if you need space, you will not use VR. So it's the problem. The problem is the VR need to be adapted to people, not the reverse. Today, the VR is adapted to VR, not to people. And this is something we have to change. But what is the biggest problem of VR today? When you put your headset on your face the first time, when you try VR for the first time, you are impressed at first. You see the world around you. It's something new. You really believe that you are in the new world. But just after that, you realize that there is a big problem. You are stuck in the same place. You cannot really explore this virtual world. And you want to be free. And it's frustrating because you are not able to move around. You have limitation. You it's complicated to interact with this world with your hands, like in the real world. But, okay, we try to see what we need to do to have the mainstream in VR. So maybe the best is to look at the past. So, okay, what the past teaches? What could be possible if we look at the past, what we can compare to see what's happened in the past to make the VR mainstream. So the VR exists since very, very long time. And it's just recently in 2012 that Palmer Luckey gives us a way to see VR with Oculus. But if you look at the personal computer, today the personal computer is become mainstream. So when this started, how long it take to become mainstream? Well, and what was the main key that changed everything? It started with some computer prototype. The first one was in 1971 with the Cambach one. And if we compare in VR, it's like we can say we start like in 2010 with the first prototype of the Oculus made by Palmer Luckey. After he had been sold to Facebook with the help of Brendan Erib in 2012. For the personal computer, from 1971 to 1983, you had a lot of different type of computer. You have the Apple one, the Apple II, the Commodore PET, the Commodore 64, the TI-91, generally more in USA, the ZX81, the Spectrum by Sinclair, and this is more in UK, and the Atmos 2 and the Doric one. It was in UK, it was in France, it was more in Europe. You have the MS6. It was more in Japan. It was a development with Microsoft and some company in Japan. It was a platform for many manufacturers. And you can compare that to the number of VR headsets you have today. You have a lot of VR headsets today on the market. You have Oculus, you have Vive, and you have many of them. You have some new professional one, not coming every day, but many new coming every year. In the same time, in this, oops, je me suis trompé. Ça, je vais faire. One second, I did a mistake on my. Ok. Ouais, c'est ça. C'est ça que je voulais faire. Voilà. In the same time, you had the start of the prototype of something called the mouse. The mouse started very early, in fact, and the ideas of the mouse start very early. And the first one to create to push the idea of the mouse is dead recently. It was Douglas Elgenbar at Stanford Research Institute, and all this evaluates have been changed and updated in 1979 by Jean-Daniel Nicou. And in fact, it's one of the founder of Logitech today. So the mouse and the user interface created by Xerox was one of the key. It was a demonstration was made to Steve Jobs and to Apple, and also to Bill Gates just after that. And this was the key for people to have something more usable for the computer. In 1984, you had the first Macintosh coming, and just after you had the Windows 1.0. In the same time, you also have the Atari ST, Commodore Amiga, etc., with mouse. And the second important key was in 1989 with the first presentation of Tim Berners-Lee at the CERN, at the border of Switzerland and France, to present what is today the World Wide Web. Internet was a bit before that, but Internet was just a connection between each net, but not the user interface of this technology. And after, you had the release of Windows 3 with 3.2 with access to network and internet. And in fact, everything became more concentrated. So as you see before, you have a lot of computer, and starting in 1919, you had Windows almost take all the market, and only one kind of computer with only one kind of operating system, mostly. But it's you have to wait something like between 2001 and 2009 to have the mainstream computer become mainstream. Okay, so if we do a little analysis about this, it took around 35 years for the personal computer to become mainstream. The mouse was a game changer, and the web definitively did the touchdown. Since the start of the modern VR, initiated by Palmer Luckey in 2012, we can imagine the same road than the one of the PC. So you had the prototype and the go-to-market. You have a clone of the same product, of the same asset. At one point, you have all the asset was not compatible, and it changed just after that. You generally today, you have a more professional usage than mass market usage, even if you have some game usage in PS4, for instance. And you had to have something to have the better user experience for people, something more adaptive, like the mouse, like the user experience, maybe less cable, maybe something that you don't mandatory need place. You will have to harmonize and you have to be more compatible. It's something already happened with OpenXR, for instance, even if it's not yet fully on the market, but at least the specification are there. You will have some kind of market consolidation, because I guess because of this kind of harmonization, you will have almost you may have more power headset or something, but you may have less company on the market to show up and give some new kind of products. And you will have to have something like the web with interconnection and interoperability, something simple to use for everyone, not AOL kind system. This is very important. And if we don't have that, we will never have mainstream. So we will have to create something like the web for the VR. But okay, what is the mouse of VR? What could be the mouse of VR? To know that, we need to define what is a mouse. Okay, a mouse is two things. You have the action and you have the displacement, the locomotion on your table. It's two different features. And okay, what we have today in VR. Today in VR, you are the controller because you can look around. Okay, you are one of the part of the controller. The headset is one controller. You also have your hand with or without controller, without device. Okay, but okay, you need to have locomotion because this is only to interact. So okay, you can use a controller, but do you really work with your hand? I don't think in real life you work with your hand. It's strange. Generally, you work with your feet. So you need a controller for your feet. And okay, in fact, as you did understand, I think it's what we do. I will not have the sound. So we have been released on PC and on PS4. We are the only device on PS4 not designed by Sony, and we are a French company. So it's interesting. I will give you the link on the chat if you want to see the video with the sound. Okay, let's continue. Oh, okay, it's gone. Now, where is it? Okay, it's here. Okay, so the 3D is or could be, because it's possible some other kind of device could show up, but today I think it's one of the best solutions to have the locomotion in VR with all the definition I showed you before. And you can still interact with the VR world because you have your hand free. So, okay, the mouse of VR, if you compare it, this means you can interact with the VR world with your hands, and you can use your feet for the locomotion. And recently, we released another stuff. We are compatible with the Quest. It's not yet available, but it's interesting because with the Quest, you can use your hand directly now. And if you use your hand, you don't have excuse that you don't have a controller. Okay, so we have it on a we did the version for the Quest, and this could change a lot because you will have your hand free to directly interact, and this simplified a lot the usage of VR for new people. Okay. The way the brain reacts in VR, in fact, it's interesting for the 3D RUDDER because the brain is plastic, and the 3D and the adoption to and the learning curve to go to the usage of the 3D RUDDER is very short. You will be able to understand it and use it in few minutes, and your brain will adapt immediately. So you will have the VR directly. You will have your hand free, so you will have a feeling of better immersion. And as you use your feet, you will have less motion sickness. You still have more. You still have you could still have motion sickness, but you will have less. And what will change more, because we have some experience we did, it will be the frame rate, in fact, the headset. And for instance, with the PlayStation 4, the PSVR headset, you can go up to 120 Hertz. You can have the index too, can go to up to 144 Hertz. And this will be very important to not have the sickness, I think, more than many other stuff. And the fact to use a 3D RUDDER plus a very good frame rate is we generally don't have people sick. In fact, in general, what is important for the sickness part is the fact that your brain is not too much disturbed, that your brain can understand don't see the difference between the action you do and what the eyes see and what the body feel, and this is make that you are sick or not. So what is important, and I will put the link of the article I made about this on the chat if you want. What is important to have mainstream VR is the fact that the VR need to be adapted to people, that it's possible to use it without complication, that you will have some key events like for the personal computer will help it. And I think personally, and I hope that we are one of these key events. And I really think that what will be the main important part, it will be the web of the VR. So some people call that the multiverse, the Oasis, etc. But for me, it need to be think like internet, and this will be, in fact, the key of everything. Okay, if you have any question.
Thank you for your presentation. We'll have time for one quick question. If anybody in the public wants to ask it, please press on the raise hand button, which is in the middle bottom of your Virbela screen. Yes, Simon, I see that you have a question, please.
Yep. Hi, first of all, I really like this device to move around. I was thinking about if you ever think about made a device for people who want to stand up while doing the VR experience, because I think that this device can be used only if you are sit down.
Yes, but it's a very, thank you for the question, because it's a very important point. We know the way to do it in stand-up, but we don't think it's a good way. Today, when you are in computer, when you use your computer, you generally sit. And I think most of you, as you are in this room, and as you watch this conference, and you don't use mandatory VR, you are sitting in front of your screen, looking at this application, and you are not standing. You are sit, most of you. So this is the first point. So why we need to do the same in VR? I don't mandatorily understand this need. Because when you are in real life, when you in VR you see that you are standing, but this means that you need to be standing in VR. Fine. I mean, when you are standing in VR, you need to be standing in real life. Just think about it. When you walk in the street, not in VR, in real life, okay? When you walk in the street, you are standing, you walk, you go to one place to another place. So do you realize that you actually walk? You just go to one place to another place. You don't. You are not conscient to say to all your muscle of all your leg, all your feet that you walk. You just go. Okay, and I think it's not that important. I think what is important, what makes the immersion, is the fact to not think about the fact you have locomotion. This is what is important. To the fact that you can interact with the world without thinking, without have the constraint of the joystick and the basis, you can directly use your hand. And another point important is something we realized recently. We talk about a lot of big account company like French SNCF, Air France, and many other. And I think it will be the same in US, because US are a lot more linked to the legal part. And in fact, those companies don't want to take the risk to have people standing in VR. They want to use VR, but they don't want to have to take the risk to have people standing in VR, because it's too much dangerous to have injury and to have to go to the court for those people. And think about it. It's something important, in fact, in some way. So yes, it could feel natural because it's what you see, that you stand. But think it's very important. So yeah, technically we know the way to do it standing, but we are not sure that it's a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Unfortunately, we're already running 10 minutes late behind the schedule. If you have any further questions, you can always ask them in the public chat. And thank you for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Right. Could the next speaker, Victor, come onto the stage, please?
I will put the link of my article on the chat. Okay. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Victor. Okay, great. Please come on stage, Victor. Right. Can you hear me? Can you please try talking? Because I don't hear you. Victor, can you please say something, because I can't hear you right now. Maybe your mic is off.
Is it good?
Oh, no, it's good. Perfect. Thank you.
Hello, Ophélie. Can you hear me?
I think she's not there.
Hi, Victor. I can hear you.
Okay, so I guess that if you can hear me, everybody can hear me, correct?
Everybody can.
Okay, good. Well,
sorry, just 1 second.
First, hello, everybody. I'm actually super excited to be here. It feels super new.
Victor,
Yes.
I'm sorry. It's just that Ludmila was talking, and I think she has something to ask everybody before.
Yes, please. I'm sorry.
Okay, go
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Does everybody see the presentation? If it shows you an error or you can't see the screen, please press the refresh button on the top right corner. Thank you. And if you have, if you don't see it, so yes, please press the refresh button top right corner of the middle screen. You have this little refresh icon. Okay, perfect. If you have any other questions, please direct message me or message it in the public. Thank you, and please turn off your mic during the presentation. Let's go on, Victor. Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, is it good now?
And please, the person that's behind me, get off the stage. Thanks. Sorry.
Okay, is it good now?
I can hear you. Can everybody hear in the audience?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess this is good. Ophélie, can you confirm we're all good? Ludmila, can you confirm we're good?
I can hear. I can see the presentation. Should be good.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. So my name is Victor AGULHON. I'm the co-founder and the CEO of TARGO. I just want to say a word before to the team of Laval Virtual who just pulled this event, which is actually pretty crazy. I didn't expect that many people. I didn't expect to have that much fun. So I just want to congratulate them because for the event industry, this crisis is especially tough. So I want to congratulate them and thank them for holding this event. So we're going to spend. Sorry, no, you're welcome. We're going to have to spend the next 20 minutes together, and I want to use this time to talk about creating mainstream virtual reality experiences and what it means for us at TARGO. So at TARGO, we are virtual reality media, which means that we create VR experiences that we distribute online and in VR streaming platforms and in VR cinemas around the world. These experiences are documentaries that last from 10 to 15 minutes on stories that are usually going to allow you to live what you can't, right? So our goal is really to take something that exists, to film it, and to bring it to the users in the form of a documentary, a story that's going to be very, very compelling. The reason we do this is because today we think that there's no really mainstream content in virtual reality. When you look at what's going on, I think there's a great divide between two extremes. On one side, you have all the games that are going to target mostly gamers, and that work extremely well, but that really address the niche of the gamers. Google slide not working.
Please press the refresh
one side
button.
You have the gamers, and on the other side you have all the. Let me see. Is it working now?
The person in the public.
Okay, good.
Who doesn't
so I'm
see
going to
the
refresh
screen,
every
please
time
press refresh.
No,
you shouldn't technically refresh.
And so we have this great divide between gamings, and on the other side we have experiences that I think are very artistic, that are extremely well crafted, but that are mostly targeted to festivals and elitist audience. And we think that there is an audience, a big space in the middle that remains unaddressed, that is the space for mainstream experiences. It's difficult to define what a mainstream experience is, but we can define what it's not. And very briefly, what we can say is there is a balance between the stories that are going to speak to everybody, the kind of thing that we're used to watching on Netflix, on TV, on these kind of platforms, but for virtual reality. And today, VR, obviously, and what it looks like is that the driving force is gaming. And the way we see it is that it's not because VR is a gaming console, it's because you have more games that are going to attract gamers. And so today we have an industry that's working around games, that's generating revenue around games, because you have lots of great gaming content. And that's why we at TARGO, we really believe that making mainstream VR content is about making mainstream VR. It's because if we're able to create content that gives people reason to put on VR headset, you're going to give them reason to come to watch, and we're going to be able to extend the base. And that's why we're focusing on mainstream experiences. Okay, slides no show. Please refresh. Yes, I can hear that. Ta-da! Okay, so I'm going to refresh every single time. But the idea, I mean, the slides are just a supporting element, and most of it's going to rely in the text. But the end goal for us is that if we offer great content, we're going to mainstream content, we're going to bring mainstream audience, and for us, it's about the success of VR in general. So the way I want to talk about mainstream content today is about two main defining factors. Is what is a great content itself. I want to dive into how we try to make what we identify as mainstream content, and really humbly try to explain what we've found on the way. And the second way is the distribution. How do we distribute this for making sure that this is going to be seen as widely as possible, and that as many people as possible are going to be able to enjoy it. So let's start with the content first. I think when you go to the core of what virtual reality is, I think a big part of what virtual reality is that it brings more depth of information. What I mean when I say that it brings depth of information is that there's lots of technologies that allow us to get access to information faster, right? The internet allows us to get access to information faster. When you go on Twitter, you can see all the latest news very quickly. VR is not a good fit for this kind of content. VR is good if you want to establish the kind of information that brings you to another level. It's a way to know more about a topic, to feel more about it, but it's not a way to access it faster. So it means that in terms of the way people dedicate their time to VR, they're not going to dedicate it in the same way, you go on Instagram watching stories on Facebook. It's like it's a moment that they're going to dedicate for it. So it requires that we really think about this in the same way that people go to cinema, right? It means that we have to go to do something that are really incredible, that are going to justify the fact that people are going to put on a headset for 10 or 15 minutes on their head. And we have to provide them a level of experience that is really, really incredible. One of the things also that's really defining for us is that there is one of the other things that's really defining for us is that there is a big room for nonfiction in VR. We've seen a lot of things in VR, and what we think works super well is documentaries. There is something that is really magical, and that's ineffable in the way it works, but being able to explore our world, like real sites, real locations, meet real people, and explore what's really going on our planet, in the way it works, there is something really magical about this. And that's what we are focusing on. We don't want to work on fiction. Our really end game is to bring the real world to virtual reality, to allow people to do more, to really live what they can't, but that's happening in the real world. So before I dive into the specifics of what makes a great content and what we're trying to achieve every time we make a new documentary, I want to take the example of our last documentary, which was Rebuilding Notre Dame. It's a documentary about the cathedral before and after the fire that we produced in partnership with Oculus. And for this documentary, we tried to tick all the boxes that make a great VR content. And I want to dive into them and try to explain how we think about them and how we thought about them for this specific documentary. VR is a visual technology, so VR has to start with a place. We think of where are you going to be, and that's probably one of the most important questions. There's lots of stories that don't belong to VR just because they don't happen in a place that is interesting enough for the medium. So we have to think native in terms of VR, in terms of story that are going to fit, and the first question we ask is, where is this happening? And the place is defining, because that's the moment, that's what people are going to remember. It's where they are, what happened when they were there. It's what is the iconic shot that you want people to remember. And for us, for this piece about Notre Dame, it was very obvious. It was about going inside the cathedral and being able to see what the damage was. So this is for us the iconic shot, right? You're under the halls. This is inside the cathedral. And these are really this is a place that justifies using VR, just because what you want here is a depth of information, right? You don't want to know if the fires happened. Also, you just want to really understand what's going on, what it looks like. So this is a place that is going to work extremely well in VR, and having that shot, this ability to be in the middle of the cathedral was essential to us. So the place is the first one. But the second most important element for us is the people. You know, if we were just to focus on place, we could just go on Google Maps and go and use a Google Street View to watch things and see, you know, what they look like. The second most important element is the people we bring in. There is something, and I think it goes back to the depth of information. It's about how much VR is irrational in the way it works. There is, you know, it's a form of attraction, something magical about being sitting in front of somebody in virtual reality and seeing this person talk to you firsthand. So carefully selecting the characters you're going to include in your story is extremely important. For this piece on Notre Dame, we chose to focus on 4 characters who reflect the variety of the cathedral. So it's a priest, it's a person in charge of rebuilding the cathedral, it's a mayor of Paris, it's a historian, it's all the people who have something special to say, something meaningful, something almost intimate about the cathedral to tell you, and you're going to hear it directly from them. And so carefully selecting people is really, really a key element in everything we do in mainstream VR. You want to be able to create a personal connection in stories. And once you've had people in place, which do sound like basic elements, I think the third most basic element is the story. So having a good story to tell in VR is not as obvious. And it's something that's being overlooked a long, long time. You know, sometimes lots of people thought about the experience part being in itself important enough, you know, just that if you put people, let's say skydiving, this is going to be enough. No, what you need is a really, really strong story that's going to justify the fact that people look at the place and listen to the people. And for Notre Dame, the story was obvious. We had some footage of the cathedral before the fire, and we used this with the footage of the cathedral after the fire. And the whole documentary is about recreating the cathedral, and that's why the documentary is called Rebuilding. The goal for us is really to offer this experience of rediscovering the cathedral before and after the fire. And these three elements have to be combined in very careful ways. And the more time passes by, the more we realize that, you know, narration is definitely the most important element. The ability to guide a viewer, to guide somebody in a VR experience is not evenly distributed. And this is not my job, but this is a job of the directors with whom we work. And what we see is that a good director, a good editor are absolutely essential. And that if you think that just having beautiful imagery is going to be enough for your experience to be great, I think it's just about missing half of the picture in virtual reality. So narration comes out like, let's say, an overarching element that needs to encompass the place, the story, and the people to make something meaningful. And this is not only what we're trying to achieve with Notre Dame. I want to take other examples because I think they kind of show what we mean when we say mainstream. When we say mainstream, we just want to talk about things that people know, you know, the kind of thing that interests people, that makes the headline. You know, we went to Mosul also to film how paragliders were resuming their life after ISIS. So what we did there was that we went there with a famous French journalist. We went all around the city. We had these people who were telling us their personal stories, and it does fit all the elements because you have the story of people who survived, you have the people that actually survived who telling you their story, and you get to meet them, and you get a place which is absolutely incredible. And for us who've never been, most of us who've never actually been to places torn by war, it's an incredible experience. So this is a kind of story also that encompasses, that goes into the mainstream scope for us. We did this other experience with an explorer who's the youngest French explorer who actually crossed the South Pole 51 day on his own. And the same, you have a place, Antarctica, a character, the explorer, and a story, which is how is he going to cross the South Pole in 50 days. And every single story, every single documentary has to be able to be interesting, to seem like, oh, I want to see that, just when you say these three elements. And this it sounds very basic, but if you look at this, at all the VR production through this lens, you see that not that many actually come in well. And this is something that we're building on the way. So we are learning constantly, but I think these are the three elements that we've really identified that come in every single time. Two things that we've identified also that work extremely well, but we don't know why, but we've noticed them. And because I think it's part of the artistry of making VR, it's like a collection of small things that make people stay, that make an experience worthy to look at. I think the first one is geometry and depth. Because 360 is 360, many people will tell you that it's not important when you place the camera. The more I look at VR, the more I can see beautiful shots and we can understand what makes a good shot. There's two elements. First, the depth of like where are you placed actually in the footage, and the geometry. And we see that geometry is just an essential element of having beautiful shots. So in everything we're trying to make, we are including the elements of geometry. And this shot here is a screenshot from the Notre Dame experience, where you're behind a gargoyle. So you have the depth filling right next to you. You feel like you're there. And you have, in geometrically aligned behind, you have the spire of the cathedral that was there before the fire. These are elements that we look in every single documentary. Another thing that works extremely well, but we don't know really why, is the reflections. The reflection of light on water. I think it's just because it comes in as a, it recreates really the feeling we have in the real life. It works extremely well. So whenever you're next to water, whenever you're next to a mirror, there is something that is, creating that illusion that you're really there. And these are sensations that you're used to have only in the real world. The last element for us is the movement. So it's been a highly debated topic about in VR, like should you make movement or not? There's different opinions. We think it helps us move a story forward. And this is a screenshot from a documentary with an astronaut that we made. You see here there is geometry, there is a beautiful scenery, and there is a slider that moves slowly toward the astronaut when you get to meet him. And these are elements that create beautiful shots. So these three elements have no hard component in them, but they're part of what makes an experience really beautiful and worthy to look at. So these are small things that we've noticed that work really well without necessarily knowing why, but that these are patterns. And I think these patterns help us make the best VR experiences that we can today. So once we have good content, good mainstream content, the content that speaks to everybody, that you can pitch in one line, and that's actually seducing and that gives you the will to watch it. The distribution is the second most important aspect. Today, VR is also very divided between a production company, distribution company. We're trying to go beyond the divide and actually distribute also our own content. So for instance, when we work with Oculus, we distribute under our own name. We publish to our own channels. This is something that's important for us because you can't make great content if you don't have the great strategy to release it afterwards. For us, the key element of making mainstream content is also because mainstream is a necessity. If you don't make mainstream content, you're just going to target a niche in the niche, because let's agree that VR is not the most commonly spread technology. So we need to target mainstream audience to be able to reach a sufficient amount of people. So it's not only because the content in VR is going to be there, it's also because that's the only way that we can find the market with it. I guess most of you are familiar with the two ways to reach the mainstream audience. There's offline and online distribution. I just want to start with the offline distribution because I think that it's what's been proven. We work with a fair amount of arcades all around the world and location-based entertainments. So these are places, I guess you know all of them, but most of you know what it is about. But these are places where you have like 20 to 50 headsets. You go, you buy a ticket, and it's like a cinema. What is not proven today is whether the arcade format works. It is that, just you go into a room to rent access to a VR headset for, let's say, 20 euros. You can play as many games as you want. I don't think this is proven, and I don't think that this is going to last very long. What works, though, and what's working extremely well is the arcades that are targeted on one specific use case. And I think a very clear example is The Void, which is, targeting on video games, really focused on video games. It works extremely well. You have Wild Immersion, which is a cinema in Paris, which is basically a virtual zoo. You go there, you buy a ticket, and you can, go see all the animals in the savannah. It's very entertaining, very wide audience, very mainstream. And you have also Flyview, which is an attraction in Paris where you get to fly all over Paris. You're in a jetpack, and it's a beautiful drone experience. And all these experiences work extremely well, whether they're games, nature, or culture, because they're targeted and they have one use case which is very precise. People go to the cinema to watch this movie, people go to Wild Immersion to go see animals, and people go to Flyview to fly over Paris. And these are very clear use cases, and I think it's working really well. So that's one thing that we don't need to discuss much more, because I think the use case here is proven. What we see and what's most important for us is what's going on with the online distribution business. So online distribution, I think, goes from very, very far back. We've gone through the first step, which is we didn't know if user-generated content was going to work. You had platforms like VR that really thought that people working with 360 cameras will help VR breakthrough. I think everybody comes back from this, realize this is not going to happen, and that VR is more a cinematic-like experience. So once we got to that part, I think there is a market that starts to appear, and I want to see how we think about it. So the way we think about it is, you can't think about mainstream distribution if you don't think about the hardware. Our approach has always been to focus on the highest common denominator. What I mean is that if 5 years ago you were focusing only on interactive 6 degrees of freedom virtual reality, you could probably have reached 10 people. This is evolving very quickly because you have new hardware, new generation of headsets. We went from the Gear VR to the Quest in like 2.5 years. And we see this change in the way people consume content. So the evolution we've been following is from 360 video, very simple, to 360 stereoscopic videos, slightly more elaborate, to 6 degrees of freedom experiences in nonfiction. And this has to remain the North Star, because if you don't think about how people consume the content, you're never going to create the right content. So this is why it's important for us to think that, to really have this creation and distribution approach of content, because we need to think both at the same time. So today with the Quest, all the headset, the Focus, and all these headsets that are autonomous and offer 6 degrees of freedom, we see an improvement, and we can bring better and better experiences, but we have to follow what's in the market, right? For instance, today, if you're working on haptics only experiences, your market's going to be such a niche that I don't think you're gonna just address the mainstream experience, the audience. So that's how we think. That's how we think about it. What we see though in the VR online market is that people stream VR content. Like, this is not a question anymore. It is proven. All of our experiences reach approximately 150,000 people in VR headsets. So people stream VR content. The approach we've had is that we really diversify the sources where we get the stream. So we're on YouTube VR, Samsung VR, Oculus TV VR within, and all of these platforms distribute our content and people watch it. We can see that people spend time in this, and this is actually a very good sign that the mainstream content belongs to VR. That's the most encouraging thing we've seen to date. The kind of like where this all mitigates is that people don't pay for the content online, and that's like lots of questions about this. We don't know the answer. We don't have a solution for this. But even though people watch the content, people are not willing to pay for the content. We've been working with several partners to put some of our best content behind paywalls, and do some period of time where we release the content only behind a paywall, and we see whether people are going to buy it or not. What we see is that there's too little people who purchase the content behind paywalls to actually make sense economically out of it. So what you lose in visibility, you don't make up within the money. So the big question today we have is, people watch the content, they have interest in it, but they're not willing to pay for it. I do think it's also related to the fact that people are used not to pay for videos, and that video probably still has a value proposition that remains too low. I mean, at least that's what we can see right now for the 360 videos, and that the value proposition is not there yet for people. So I think the next step, and where everybody is at today, is that we know how to make great content. The industry's pretty much solved this problem. We need to focus more, and that's our mission, to really focus on mainstream audiences, stuff that really speak to everybody. And then our interest is to making people pay for it and try to test their willingness to actually pay for having the best content. I can see some of your questions. I'm gonna answer after that. So what we see as the future of this as a conclusion. The key element for us is to thinking native to VR. If you think of VR just as a leverage to get to other platforms, it's not going to work. Even though the market is small, even though maybe 150,000 people who watch the experiences, it doesn't sound small per se. This is the only way we're going to break through in VR. So we need to focus very seriously in how to make and distribute natively in virtual reality in terms of content. The second thing is that, and that's what I was talking to you about in terms of what we see today. Today, we have a market that's based on gamers, and gamers are willing to pay for games. We have a market for videos because people watch videos, but people are not willing to pay for videos. Our assumption today is that people don't pay for video because the format video is not identified as a format for which you should pay. So our assumption is that a viable solution for the market is that we actually take game technologies. So it's 6 degrees of freedom and interactive experiences, and that we blend it with our expertise of nonfiction and documentaries to make things that people are going to be willing to purchase. So this is what we're currently working on. It's about building the next phase of VR, and that's going to be also present, and that's going to be the tech that's going to be used when we change hardware, and when we go from headsets of VR to AR headsets, maybe Apple, maybe Facebook one day. We know everyone's working on, and we know that the right tech is going to be real-time rendered. So thank you very much for coming here and for your attention. I've seen few questions, so I don't know if we have time. Ophélie, you can tell me. Thank you.
We have some minutes for 2 questions.
Do we have time for question? I look at the queue. Yes, no.
2 questions. We'll have time for 2 questions, I'd say.
Okay, so let's take the question of the Netflix of VR. We've seen lots of people today trying to implement subscription-based model. Maybe it works for them, but the thing that it doesn't work for the users. And I think it's way too early today to justify paying, let's say, 10 euros subscription model. So what we see that this is not happening today, and that the volume you need to make it really viable are not there yet. And so that's actually one of the reasons we talk with lots of people. We talk with Samsung VR, we talk with Oculus, we talk with all, I would say, the platforms that have a massive reach, and all of them are not implementing a paywall because they think that the money they can make out of it is non-essential compared to the visibility that they're going to lose. So the Netflix of VR, I don't think we're quite there yet, and we need a much bigger market for that to happen.
Thank you. I think there was.
So the question of the advertising model, why not? It's just that VR experiences that provide great experiences are expensive to produce, and that usually the budgets by advertisers don't work out yet. So basically, in terms of source of revenue, how we do today, so we sell licensing online rights to lots of companies. It can be telecom companies, it can be streaming platforms, and the other way is we monetize in location-based entertainment with arcades. You set up specific experiences based around, let's say, one of the experiences. But these are the 2 ways we monetize yet. We don't see third-party brands that are not involved in entertainment or media actively pay for VR visibility. And so I think if there's no more question, I'm going to leave you here, right? And if you want, I'm you can reach me at my email. You can reach me on Twitter, wherever. I answer to all my emails, of course. So So thank you very much, guys, and congratulations again to the Laval team because it's been quite an experience. I don't know how we can take a selfie, so I'm just going to take a, let's say, like a picture from the back, but that's fine. That's gonna be good. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody. We will be taking a short 10-minute break, then we will be back with you with the next presentation. Thank you. T'es là?
Oui.
Ok.
Séverine est juste là.
Ok. Maxence ou pas?
Hop, donc Ludmilla, je te présente Séverine.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Ludmilla, enchantée.
Bonjour Ludmilla, Séverine, donc enchantée. Donc j'ai envoyé. Vous voulez qu'on aille autre part, c'est ça?
Non, non, on peut rester là. Donc moi, je vais devoir streamer la présentation. Il faudra juste que vous me dites quand je dois passer au slide suivant.
D'accord, pas de souci, ouais. Bah, je vous dirai, ouais.
Et du coup, Ophélie, si Maxence, du coup, dans ce cas-là, parce que si je suis en train de presser les boutons sur la présentation en même temps qu'il y a quelqu'un qui monte sur la scène, ça va être un peu chaud.
Ouais,
donc,
alors je l'ai prévenu, mais je ne sais pas s'il a vu. Maxence?
Je ne vois pas. Ça.
Bah, ici, il est encore dans le...
Alors ouais, je suis là.
Ah,
il a bougé.
On a perdu. Okay.
Du coup, l'organisation va être un peu différente sur cette conférence-là parce que Séverine n'a pas pu faire les sessions de test. Donc, c'est Ludmilla qui va passer son slide. Donc, en fait, j'aurais vraiment besoin que sur cette session-là, tu sois en appui sur la modération, sur tous les problèmes de salle, etc. Ça t'embête pas.
Ok.
N'hésite pas à monter sur scène, d'ailleurs. Ouais, parce que là, j'en ai aussi 3 qui sont montés en une espèce de 5-10 minutes, donc on a la chose ce matin.
Je rappelle à tout le monde dans la salle. Just a quick reminder, you don't have to come on stage, please. Please don't do that because if you do, we will have to kick you out of the world, and we don't want that.
Like this.
Please don't go on stage unless you're a speaker.
Ouais. Séverine, est-ce que vous voulez que on teste la présentation, je la stream, puis vous me dites si tout va bien?
Ouais, ok, ça marche.
Alors, venez avec moi sur scène, s'il vous plaît.
Ouais.
Ok. Alors, moi...
Merci, Ophélie.
Maxence, est-ce que tu sais comment faire des broadcasts room message?
Je suis pas sûr. Ah si, c'est bon, je vois.
Ouais, et ben n'hésite pas si jamais tu as besoin de dire, par exemple, là, quand on va démarrer, faire un message à tout le monde dans la salle pour dire que la conférence va démarrer.
Alors là, je vois la présentation, en effet.
Ok.
Nickel. Est-ce que ça vous dérange si on essaie juste de passer 1-2 slides pour voir que si tout marche bien et tout?
Ah ouais, non, allez-y, pas de souci.
Ok, alors.
Donc, face à
Merci.
Ça prend un peu de temps des fois.
Non, mais c'est nickel, c'est parfait, on peut avancer. Super. Eh ben écoutez, tout fonctionne bien, c'est déjà pas mal. J'ai pas mis de vidéo parce que je pensais que ça allait ramer un peu, donc j'ai mis plus des screenshots. Donc voilà.
Parfait. Top. Alors on est prêt. Elle est là, Ophélie ou pas? Elle a disparu. Ophélie, Ophélie, du coup, vu qu'on commence dans 5 minutes, je peux laisser la présentation là en attendant.
Oui, pas de souci, aucun problème.
Ok, top. Nickel. Alors c'est tout bon, je vais rappeler après à la salle qu'il faudra rafraîchir la page. Dear viewers, if you do not see the presentation or like the first slide that we put on the main screen, please press on the refresh button on the top right corner of the middle screen, and then you should see it. Perfect, thanks. And if it's still not working, like you're pressing several times on the refresh button and it's not working, try leaving the room and then coming back in. Sometimes Virbella overloads and we have little issues like that. Thank you. And also during the presentation, please don't come onto the stage. Otherwise, we will unfortunately have to kick you out of the world. And please just keep your mic off. If you have any questions, any issues, you can always write in the public chat. If you have any technical issues, you can write to me or to Maxence, who's on my right side over there. And me or him will try to resolve it and help you and do our best so that you have a good time. Thank you. We will be starting in about 5 minutes. Yeah.
I got one question. But sometimes it's hard to control our avatar. We tend to go on stage by accident.
Yeah, I mean, normally it shouldn't be doing that. Normally, when you enter, we've programmed the room that when you enter it, you should be seated. So normally this should not be happening. If by any chance it was really not a mistake on your side and you see that it happened several times to you, that you're automatically taken to the stage, please write us a message and we will contact our tech team to ask who is the issues. Because normally that should not be happening. Normally you should be all taken to your seats, or you should be standing not on the stage, basically, around this area.
Because sometimes I want to put my avatar on the front seat so that I can see I fit the button to zoom.
Okay. Normally should maybe just are you on a desktop or you're in VR?
I'm in the desktop, so it's kind of hard to control.
Okay, it's the best to do is really to be the closest possible to the seat that you want to take. That way it works. So it's a little bit tricky. I'm sorry about that. But if you come really close to the seat and then you press sit down, it should be working normally.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Séverine, est-ce qu'on commence? Il est presque 55, 54.
Il est 54, ouais. Alors, je sais pas, il y a pas Grégory Maubon qui devait aussi animer?
Je n'en ai pas eu de nouvelles de ça.
Bah, je peux faire la présentation, il n'y a pas de souci, je peux commencer.
Ok, d'accord. Alors, je vais juste dire à la salle qu'on va commencer tout de suite. Merci beaucoup. Dear viewers, we will be starting shortly right now. Thank you. Please turn off your microphone, avoid going onto the stage. And if you have any questions, please write it down in the public chat. Thank you. Enjoy the presentation.
So I guess everyone is hearing me. So hi, my name is Séverine MINASSIAN. I'm happy to be with you today in Virbela and Laval Virtual World. So it's an amazing word. So Ludmila will help me changing the slides. So she will have the hands on the presentation. So I will present you SPEEDERNET. It's a digital studio, and Sphere, which is an authoring tool for VR conception. So we can go further, Ludmila. Okay, so to present you the digital studio, we've been in the training industry for about 20 years now. And we are 40 people working at the digital studio, and we create content, let's say digital content learning, and we also move into the immersive learning for a few years now. We are creating some, we used to create the content with a tool called Storyline, and back 5-6 years ago, we were looking for a tool to create content in VR and to have a deep training scenario. So we decided to create our own tool, which is Sphere, with 8-10 developers working on the development of this tool. And I will present you some creation of what we have done with the immersive learning content and what our customers are also doing with this tool. So this is an overview of what we have. An overview of the studio. We also are experts in LMS, as we are created our own LMS, and we are also supporting our customer in the consulting for deployment, for content, for blended learning, for all the environment of the training in a large corporation. So we can move on to the next Okay, so I will present you 6 use cases, so don't want to be pretty quick. So my 6 use case will be starting with a 3D environment. So you'll have 2 with a 3D environment for Air France and ABB. You'll have 2 with the Pictures 360 in VR for Total and Vinci, and 2 in Video 360 with SNCF. And that gives you an idea of all the kind of content you can create with the tool and what kind of the training scenario you can propose to your customers or the option you can go on to this kind of immersive learning. So let's skip to the next slide. Okay, so the first one is Air France. So I'm sure you all know the airline company of Air France, and they had a needs. So the needs was to train the cabin to stop a water leak from the toilet from a specific plane. So I will not mention which plane to avoid the panic of getting onto the plane again. So we had to modelize in 3D the plane toilet. Very sexy, and we did have to create this 3D environment, these 3D toilets to help the cabin crew to stop this water leak. So the solution was first to create the modeling assets and then to create a training scenario for the cabin crew to experiment and to test their knowledge into that maintenance, I would say, process, and they could do it in a face-to-face training. So Air France deliver face-to-face training with trainers, and they do have a virtual room where they have a large number of sets that are using Oculus Quest. And they ask the learners to come into a real VR environment and to process with the exercise. So instead of watching a PowerPoint and just reading, they can have the controller in their hands and they can do the same process they will have to do in real environment into the plane. So they can break, they can make errors, they can test their knowledge into that process of stopping a water leak in these toilets. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. And let's skip to the ABB slide now. So the ABB slide, ABB is a large company of producing electrical elements. So their needs was to train the people, the salespeople, dedicated to all the food and beverage, to have the good, I would say, the good talking and the good discussion about presenting the family products for the food and beverage environment, and to train the sales force into a kind of on knowing better their product they have in the catalog. So we did a large modeling of a factory. When I talk about a factory, it was a cookies factory, and we have to go through the mills, through the production, through the packaging. So it was all the process from the start till the end, where they ship the cookies to our supermarket. And the training scenario was just to have an overview of this factory plant and this mill, and to ask the sales force to do a kind of a hunting ABB product. So they have to find out into their environment where they could find the ABB product, and they could have some information. So it's a nicest way and funny way to engage the learner into this kind of a scenario. And this has been developed in different languages as well. So it's been developed in Chinese, well, I'm not going to list all the languages, but the deployment, as it was in 360 on desktop or in VR on headset, was deployed quite largely and was pretty successful regarding the feedback we had from the learners. Going into the next use case. You can skip to the next slide, going to the pictures. So this is the oil industry Total. So I'm sure you all know about Total. And they came to us and say, okay, we have a 360 picture of a refinery. We have an overview. We took some pictures 360 with a drone. We have kind of many resources in pictures, but we don't know how to use it. So we co-write and we construct the training scenario, and we help them with a soft, again with Sphere, integrating the pictures and going through the process where they had to train their people to launch a compressor. So it's pretty technical. It's difficult for them to train the people on site, to bring the people on site, because it's a safety environment. So they have to go through different safety rules. And that was this way that we thought to offer to Total, to use their resources of the Picture 360 and to integrate some assets to link to all the processing of using this compressor. So the people could be trained in advance, and once they have to go and to do some maintenance exercise into the compressor, they knew already, because they have been processing and they went through the exercise, and they knew where to push the bottom and to stop things and to go further into the launching of this compressor. So again, it was a face-to-face training, and it was to put people in situation in this kind of a real environment, and to put it in a nice, in a real environment, so that they could again experience the processing and manage to do the exercise on the compressor. If we go to the next one, the next slides, which will be Vinci, which is the building industry. We work with this company who wanted to. They had a regulation where they had to train people about the safety on site. It was a career, and they have to to help the trainee, I mean, to help the learner, the worker who was working on site, to identify the wrong scenario, the wrong, when you have a wrong engine or a car or a truck was parked not in a proper way, or people walking on the side of proper site where they have to walk. So we work also together. We went on site, on the query site, to do some shooting 360. And from this shooting 360, from these pictures, we write this training scenario to have a hunting risk. And the workers on site was playing their own role, actually. They were doing their own role because they were standing in a not in a correct position. They were parking in the wrong way. So that was to help the trainee to identify the risk. So what we decide to do is just to have the wrong scenario and to say to the learners, okay, here is a hunting risk. You have a certain time to find out in this environment 360 where are the 5 risks around you. So there is no point of interest. There is no sign saying here there is some mistake. So they have to click, and when they click on this invisible trigger, they could figure it out, that they find out, and that they have this kind of a bad scenario. So the deployment of this was pretty easy because it was an offline presentation. So they downloaded on the mobile devices to train the people on site before entering the query site. Let's move on to the next one. So this is a use case SNCF. We work with SNCF. Again, this is an industrial company, and they have to train the people about the safety rules into a workshop, a maintenance workshop, where they have to, where they repair all the cabins and stuff like that. So it was more a sensibilization about the safety rules and the risk they can face into this workshop. So they just have to go around this. It was a video shooting 360 that we've done on site, and we add it was more an easy scenario. It's just to show you an overview of what we are able to do with other digital studio, and what you could be able also to do by yourself with a Sphere tool. I will come later on the tool. On this SNCF environment, that you can click on a point of interest, and they say, okay, be careful here. There is a tunnel. You can have a risk to fall down. Here, if you walk under this cabin, there can be a risk of being crashed by the cabin. Very nice. And you have all different point of interest to sensibilize the people who's going to be working into this workshop, into this maintenance workshop. And that was a good experience that they could teach to the learners, again, either in desktop in 360 or in VR with a headset. Another, and that will be the last scenario that I will, the last use case I will present you to the next slide. That is a TV media, TF1. I'm sure the French people know about TF1. They are actually using our soft. So this is not us who have done it. They decided to use Sphere to present all the program in VR. So you will be able to find this VR experience in their website. It's diving into the 360 program into TF1. So if you go on the website, the public website of this TV media, you will find the resources, which is more nice than seeing a screenshot of the pictures, but it was easy for me to do this presentation without the videos. And having, okay, this is a TV media, so they have a great capacity of doing 360 shooting. And of course, they have all the presenters, all the speakers who are pretty good to do speaking in front of a 360 camera, and they're presenting the whole environment of this media, and they're presenting the different kind of program they are showing. So each speaker is presenting his own program, so it's kind of a virtual program tour. So it's a nice way to have an overview of the program they are presenting, and having this 360, you can see the backstage, the front stage, you can see all the environment they are facing every day to present this program. So I invite you to watch it and to have a look on their website to have a better view of their presentation. Okay, so now till now, if you have some question, please be free to ask me. So no question, I guess. I was totally clear.
If you have any questions, please press on the raise hand button, which is at the bottom side in the middle of your screen, or you can also write them down in the public chat if you don't have a microphone. Don't be shy. There's one person who asked if you have the URL of the TF1 use case, please, and if you could share it in the public chat, Séverine.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that.
Anybody else?
Okay, I'll be looking for the URL of the TV media. I will send it to you. Yes, thank you, Ludovic. Our soft is free until 30th of June. I was coming to that point. So let's switch to the next slide, and I will present you the software, so you can have a view of the software as well. So as I was telling you, so we have both a digital studio and a publisher, a tool publisher. So you have seen an overview of use case we have been producing for our customers, excepting the TF1 who did by themselves with our soft. And here are the soft that we have been created. And really, I just want to come back on this, on the development, on the start of the development of this tool. It was really to work. We've been in the training for 20 years, so we wanted to have a tool who allows us to be pretty wide into the training. I mean, to have all the options possible to do training scenario, deep training scenario, to be able to block environment, to do kind of escape game, to do storytelling. I mean, we just want to have the liberty of the imagination. So this is what we've done with Sphere. I mean, the limit of Sphere will be your imagination. And you will have to, to let your mind go and write scenarios. And Sphere will help you just to like a puzzle. I mean, to concretize your scenario and to put in place interaction of your scenario. So easy. You can see on the screen. So you have the 360. You load your resources. 360 can be pictures, videos, or 3D. I will come a bit later on the 3D. You will enrich with images with different media. We also offer an online library with pictures, pictos, assets, and a large library also in 3D scene and 3D modeling object. And then you bring to life. So this is where the training scenario is coming. So you bring to life with the enriched media, with the triggers, with all the interactivity you want to put on your scenario, and with using the timeline, the timeline. So you can really have different opportunities to bring to life your scenario and to have different possibility from your resources 360 and from your media enriched. And then you run. So you play, you can deploy. It's a web VR solution, so you can play in any browser, and you can play, of course, in 360, in desktop, and on your smartphone, tablets, and on VR headsets. When we put mobile VR with a cardboard, so it's let's say the low-cost solution, but it can be played in VR headset like a Rift, HTC. You really are able to launch your experience you have been created with Sphere into any browser. If we go to the next slide. Thank you. So the next Sphere characteristic will be into the sharing. So as we opt for web VR solution, it's an easy sharing experience. So you can share easily again, through desktop, VR, tablets, and smartphone. How do you say, the sphere is available today for free. So thank you, Ludovic, for adding this. Regarding the lockdown context we are facing today, we decided to replay a MOOC. So MOOC, the Massive Online Open Courses that we did. We had a partnership with, we are based in Lyon, and we had a partnership with the university from Lyon. And we launched a MOOC last year in May, and we decided with this lockdown situation to play it again. So you can replay the MOOC, so it's for free. You can you just go on the FunMOOC platform, and you can find all the innovation, pedagogy. I mean the new way to work into the immersive learning, and joining this MOOC, we allow you to use the Sphere license for free. So it's the premium license. That means that you can create your content, you can export it, and you can play in your VR headset. We also have some, as I said, we have a library which is pretty rich into photo and videos and 3D, and that helps you to create also a scenario and to see how the Sphere tool is easy to use and to produce content. So be my guest, go on the website. It's sphereapp.io. Put it on also on the chat. So if you go on sphereapp.io, you will have you will have to download for free, and you can mix it with the MOOC. The MOOC is only in French, so it's only for French-speaking people to follow the MOOC. But the Sphere app, the Sphere tools are raised in English and in French, so you can both use it until June, so the end of June. So you still have time for that. If we can skip to the slide, Ludmila. So it's just to coming back on the immersive learning. So it's just to make a focus on the immersive learning. It's saying that with the immersive and with the 360 and the VR, you really engage your learner, and you really, you can use in remote, in VR, in 360 on desktop, like an e-learning module, but you can use in face-to-face. I mean, just if you remember the Air France use case, it's really using it face-to-face and try to teach people from either a real environment or from a 3D environment to get the process correct and to do the exercise correctly, and to help the people to get the knowledge of this exercise. So it's much more faster and efficient for the assimilation when you go through immersive learning. If we go to the next one, and that will be for the people who's working into education, for the next slide, it's the XR education program. So you will find it again on the website. It's thank you, François, for putting the link of TF1. And the XR education program is also on our website. If you go on offer, you will have the proper offer for the license and for the education program. And on this education program, we offer a free license for the class. For example, we have a convention. Okay, we have the free license until end of June. So this is one thing. Let's go to July. July, you are a university or a school, and you test the soft, and you say, okay, this is great. I want to put it to implement the soft into my university or to my school. You will you can get to me. I mean, you can get in touch with me, and you will have a convention signed for a year. You will have a specific price for education, of course, and then you will have we will supply for free for the whole class a free license for a year for your students. We decided to help the education with this tool because we think for the student projects, even we are working with a professional high school, And when they go and do some internship into companies and they have to do a report, it's much more efficient to show a report in VR than having a PowerPoint that so that is more yeah, classical, traditional, and a bit old-fashioned way. So if we work already with this professional school and with university, they invest in cameras 360 and they do their own content and they push. I mean, they invite their students to process with the creation of immersive content. So they have to think of the scenario, they have to think of the shooting, they have to think of many things, and they help a lot for the education process and education program. So again, be my guest, go on the website sphereapp.io and you will find the license and you will have all the info on the education program. And I just put my email address, and if you want, you will be able to get in touch with me. I will be happy to answer also your question or to typing at the same time I'm talking. So sorry. Here my email address. So if we can skip to the next slide, and I'm almost finished. I just wanted to make a focus on the 3D. So you've seen that we've been modeling 3D for Air France, for ABB, for different people. In the 3D, we've been also dealing with a strong partnership with SolidWorks. I don't know if some people are know SolidWorks, so it's one of the major 3D modeling tool developed by Dassault Systèmes. And we were talking about this partnership when we almost launched the Sphere tool in 2017. So it's been 3 years that we have this partnership with Dassault Systèmes. And having this partnership came from the GLTF file format. So I'm sure people who's working in the 3D environment will know about it. So the use of the GLTF file format is a universal 3D file format, which has been launched by Kronos Group. And we wanted to work in hand in hand with SolidWorks and Visualize, which is another tool of Dassault Systèmes, to have a workflow easy. I mean, this is to, of course, to promote the SolidWorks and Visualize 3D modeling, but also to have all the exports in GLTF. But this is not only SolidWorks and Visualize. As long as you can export in GLTF, you can import into our soft, into Sphere. So the background of Sphere is really coming from 3D. So it's for the people working on 3D, it's really interesting to test the soft because the engine motor of Sphere is pretty strong into the 3D environment. And you can use the animation that you have created into the modeling through SolidWorks or Visualize, and you can put this animation into the Sphere tool. You can also create more animation into the tool, into Sphere. And again, I mean, you can do this training scenario. I mean, I'm not going to come back on this discussion, but it's really, you have many functionality into the soft. You have many possibility to use what is existing into the 3D. So all the use of the CAD designer. I mean, we are in contact with Office Design, and I don't know if you heard. I didn't put this use case, but we are in a close partnership with the IFPEN and EFP. So IFPEN, it's a public institute research for all the environment of oil, of new development and new energy. And they've been working with SolidWorks modeling, and as it is the design office, they usually work on modeling, but it's stick to the design office. They don't share it with other departments. Using Sphere, they can still use what they have been modeling. They can share it into a VR environment through a 3D scene, and they can share with the marketing, with the communication, with the training, with the sales. I mean, what they are modeling in 3D, they can share it with all these kind of all these different departments to have a better appropriation of this new brevet and this new modeling. and they can share it to more people. It's a web VR solution again, so it's easy to deploy to people. I think if we go to the next slide, Lumila, I think this is what I'm just said. So it was about sharing what you have been doing with the 3D designing with the other department like marketing, sales, training, and maintenance. So really, it's a wide tool. I mean, you offer many possibility to do training scenario, to integrate 3D modeling from GLTF file format, and to have the opportunity to share it widely. So I think I'm done with my presentation. I hope I was not too long and I was pretty clear with everything. And I mean, today we have we work, as I said, as a digital studio with large corporation, and we have thank you, Ludovic, and we have many large corporations using the soft. I mean, Air France is today using the soft. We have ABB using the soft. We have EDF using the soft. We have major university using the soft. I mean, I'm not going to make a list of all the companies using the soft. But the possibility, it's really deep. So go and dive into the soft and be my guest if if I can help you, if I can answer your questions. I'll be very happy. So Ludmila, thank you very much for your help and for showing all my presentation.
Thank you for.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say thank you for your wonderful presentation, and for the audience. If you have any questions to Séverine, please raise your hand. By doing that, you have to press on the right hand button that is in the bottom middle side of your screen. If you don't have a mic, you can always write it in the public chat, and I will read the question. Thank you very much again, Séverine. It's wonderful.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I can see that François, thank you, François, for your help. Put all the link on the chat, so you will find the link for the MOOC, for the TV media, TF1, and for our website as well. So you have everything. And we met SPEEDERNET. Thank you, Frédéric. Indeed, we met at Optitech at Montpellier, and the interface is really, I mean, really easy to use. So it's, I mean, you'll be convinced once you try it. It's, I don't have more words than saying that we are the first customer of the tool actually, because we are a digital studio, so we are using every day, and we are making the soft evolve through our instructional designer, which are pretty demanding, and they want to industrialize their production. So that means that they want to go faster into the production, and they want to help people. I mean, to help the people who will do the content, to have the correct functionality, and to save time and money. Okay, so it's 12:30. Enjoy your meal. And if you want to have a chat with me, I mean, you can catch me on the swap card, I mean, on the platform, and I'll be happy to have a discussion with you following this presentation. Frédéric, you're asking for presentation. Thanks, could you give example of marketing and sales use? Well, for marketing, for example, we've done some visiting of industrial site, and they use it to show the production and how successful was the production of the factory, and they show it during a fair. So it was an industrial company. No, I mean, I can name it. It's Vinci, and we did a VR tour of their industry, and they could use it to present their industry to their customers during a trade show, and they could showcase their VR industry tour. For marketing as well, the ABB that I show you was designated to the sales force, but also for the marketing people, and it was to promote the catalog of the product from ABB. And it was to have a 3D scene and 3D environment, and to push the product and to ease the knowledge of the sales force and the marketers to know better about the product of ABB. I hope. Thank you for your chat. Great to have all the people in this room, and it's amazing. And thank you, Laval, for organizing this, because it's really an amazing time we are living since yesterday.
Thank you very much for being here with us and for your presentation and for a wonderful talk that I see that everybody appreciates in the audience.
Great. Okay, thank you very much, and stay home, stay safe. I don't have a gesture, you can see me, but no, I'm not going to raise my hand. But stay home, and hope to meet you in real next year at Laval.
We're done for the presentations for this morning. We'll be back this afternoon with more. Please come back, and in the meantime, enjoy the break. It's lunchtime for you, or if not, see you later. Thank you.